What's up, YouTube? Today we'll have a very special video where I go over the reactions to the video that I uploaded yesterday. I'll go over Reddit thread comments and also some YouTube comments where I will go over what I think about the comments, since they give their opinion on my video, and I'll try to set some things clear that might have been misunderstood. And in case you haven't watched the video, it's 1 hour long, so you can go ahead and watch it right now if you want, but I'll give you the TLDR now. And that is that I have seen and noticed a huge change in the community in the past couple of months since the last patch, where Zergs are whining to an extreme amount, like exaggerated amount. Especially on Reddit, but even just in Twitch chats where Zergs are saying, for example, I've lost 500 MMR because of the most recent patch. Or the Protoss in Grandmaster belong in Diamond. Or every Protoss got a 10% MMR boost. These comments, there's many of them, and they only started recently, okay? Or that Zerg got patched out of the game. And what I was saying in that video is that I believe the last patch cannot possibly have been that bad, okay? That is basically all the video is, and I'm trying to find reasons as to why it happened around that time. But yeah, either way, without getting too much further into it, before I repeat the entire video, it's basically just me saying the last patch in particular was not that bad for Zerg, even though there's right now, since that patch, a huge influx of whining. So I'll go over the Reddit comments from bottom to top, because the bottom comments on Reddit are always the most spicy ones, so we want to begin with those. There's a bunch of people that started deleting their comments once they got downvoted. They all pretty much mentioned the same point, and there was one that didn't delete their comment yet, so I want to go over that when I get to it. This is obviously not true. Terran players are historically also very bad when it comes to talking about balance. I literally mentioned in the video, while there was a bunch of TVT finals in a row, they were still whining about their race sucking. So I think every race has this, and everybody is biased towards their own race. I think it is a general thing in the StarCraft community. Okay, then Reddit has been terrible at predicting the effects of patches. I will go a little bit more into this maybe later, but I'll just leave it there for now. Funny how he tries to say top Zergs have problems, but you, who are not 0.01%, just have to get better to have fun or a fair matchup. I have not said that. I think in general, I don't think I even mentioned this in the video once. I think it's a better attitude to look at your own mistakes and to try and find more fun. For example, if I was a lower, let's say I'm in a different game, or let's say I'm a new player, relatively new, I'm Platinum, and I'm not really having that much fun playing reactive, then I would try to figure out aggressive ways of playing. You don't have to use the Zerg Academy, but you can try to find, I don't know, go to the All Things Zerg Discord and ask people there. Maybe they will help you, and try to find fun that way. It is completely fair that if you're encountering some difficulties, that you talk about them, that you want to talk about them. It is also a completely reasonable point, by the way, if you say Zerg is more difficult than the other races if you try to play a normal game. Completely fine. Like this is a completely fine take. My video was not so much about saying Zerg is not difficult to play, or if you try to play like Cyril. Either way, my video was about that the last patch is not what actually made Zerg that terrible as everybody now apparently thinks it is. It's definitely not specifically the last patch, and that is mostly what my video was about, because it was specifically since the last patch where people mostly complained about. But yeah, that is not what I talked about. I think problems at lower levels should also be looked at, and should also be taken into consideration by the Balance Council, for example. That's why I especially like changes like the carrier interceptor change, even though I personally am pissed about it, because for my own games against carriers, it is actually a slight buff for the carriers, because like in the Queen defense, very often they can go forward with the carriers and tank some hits, and you actually, in defending the carriers, you just want to attack the interceptors. So for me personally, it was actually a buff for the carriers. But I still think it's a great change, because I have some experiences with watching Platinum, Gold League, Diamond League, Master League games, right? I have been streaming for a very long time, and I had this thing called Pipega Tuesday, basically Newbie Tuesday from day 9, in case you guys still remember him, where people could send me replays, and I would see that legitimately, if the Protoss gets to a maxed out army, is not beatable anymore. I had an Archon video with Hearthstone where I played with a Platinum Zerg and he played with a Platinum Protoss, and we got pretty far ahead, but the moment they were maxed out, no matter which unit composition I would give him, and I was not allowed to talk with him, so I couldn't give him instructions. I would just give him the units. No matter which unit composition I would give him, it is impossible for him to beat that army, and that is a huge issue. That's an issue that should also be looked at, and that's why I think changes that especially don't affect the upper level that much, but do affect the lower level positively are great. So for example, the Interceptor change gets like a triple thumbs up for me. Any carrier nerf, especially because the unit is not even that strong on the top level. Like if it was up to me, you could pretty much gut it to the point where it should, but either way, I'm very much so in favor of the majority of people having more fun in StarCraft, and that's actually what I'm trying to accomplish by giving out free guides for anti-Skytos. So if you're having problems, for example, specifically against Skytos, I made 2 guides specifically for that, so people would enjoy it a little bit more. And if you have problems, it's always completely fine to voice them. I was just saying that there was the circle jerk about saying the last patch was so terrible, and that's the only reason why we now can't perform anymore. And was basically the point of the video, and I think you missed it a little bit. I hope I'm in it. I'll let you know you're in this one. Crate Dragon Pearl. I'm not sure if you were in the last one because I don't really look at the names as much. But here comes the High Seas Pirate. It's now a name that I actually remember somehow. Because he was specifically in that video, he was the top 1% Reddit commenter, which is a great badge to have, of course. And he started with a comment that I answered before he deleted it. Where he just said a couple of wrong things, and he's exactly the type of person that I talked about in my video, because he is the type of person that talked about himself losing 500 MMR, or maybe it was 450, and I think he said he has 15% win rate against Terran because of the patch, and 30% because of the patch. These are the people that I have an issue with, and these are the people that I don't think are that helpful for the scene, because if you're coming into the scene and you read this and then this shit gets upvoted and you're like, okay, damn, Zerg must really suck, and that obviously doesn't help anyone. So this is exactly why I made this video, because of people like him in particular. And what he said was also a bunch of misinformation. For example, he said that why am I hating on the Zerg whiners, and why didn't I say anything when Protoss was whining? In fact, I said the Protoss whine was generally super over exaggerated as well, and I have, I think, 3 different videos where I talk about it on my YouTube. I don't have that many videos. You can just go ahead back then and check them. I try to clear up misconceptions all the time whenever something pisses me off, right? Even the initial video where I discussed how to change the Skytos meta, I made that mostly because there were whiny Protoss players about lurkers, which was either way. And the main point was the same as Asfar's point here, which said, coming in hot, one of the best Zergs in the world and member of the Balance Council responsible for the changes, doesn't think it's too bad. Come on. He said it in like a little bit more of a funny way and less direct, but they basically said that I'm defending the very bottom comment as well, that I'm just defending the Balance Council because I'm a pro gamer and because I'm part of it. And that I'm basically, these people are saying I'm defending my own changes, which I fucking hate. What you guys don't understand is this video was part 1. Part 2 should have been me voicing my frustrations. It is important for me to put part 1 first, so I can talk about real issues that I'm having, and I can voice my criticism without even giving people like this, so people that are saying, man, Zerg got fucking patched out of the game, people that are overly dramatic, without giving these people more ammunition. So that's why I do it this way, because I talk about the lower level first. I talk specifically about the last patch, which really wasn't that bad for Zerg. It just wasn't. Okay? That's why I made that one first, and then I wanted to voice my frustrations. Now, sadly, people are misunderstanding that, as in I'm defending the Balance Council. And I feel like these people don't watch my analysis on the balance patches. They don't listen, or either they don't watch the entire video, because I'm even saying that I have nothing to do with any of these patches. This is the last patch where I did actively participate in the Balance Council, where I tried to help out. These patches I have nothing to do with, and on top of that, I hate many of these decisions. And I'm frustrated right now myself. I am doing this for a living. I get paid for this. If Zerg sucks, it's worse for me. That is what most people have an issue with for the Balance Council, is that the pro gamers are basically in charge, which is not entirely true. We don't have the last say, but the pro gamers are in charge, and they're obviously looking out for them, which I am not. I'm trying to be as neutral as possible, by uploading a video like this, because this is theoretically bad for me. Theoretically, all the Zerg wine is good for me because it will lead to the Balance Council probably trying to make it seem better for Zerg, which will end up in a better changes for Zerg. So I shouldn't tell Zerg winers to shut the fuck up because it's bad for me, right? Either way, I'm trying to be relatively objective, and I think a lot of pro gamers are as well, but there's many issues with the Balance Council. Right now, when I ladder, 70% of my games against Protoss. And that fucking stinks. And I don't even enjoy ZVP that much right now. And that is mostly because of the changes from the Balance Council. Now, I enjoyed ZVP the least before the Balance Council came in, when the real game designers left us with 2 Stargate Void Ray. That was complete and utter garbage. It was not fun. It was not enjoyable. It has gotten a lot better after this patch, which now obviously seems fantastic because I also say that that's the last patch that I did, but I noticed now that sounds stupid, but it was way better than 2 Stargate Void Rays. If you guys haven't played back then, please just understand that back then the distribution between races was exactly the same as it is now. So very skewed in favor of Protoss. And every game, truly every game, they open 4 Void Rays or 6 Void Rays into either a couple of Disruptors or just straight carrier. Every single time. And it wasn't even that much broken. Like, I could beat most players either by queen walking every game, which was really fucking boring as well. I could beat like every Protoss player in Europe besides Max Specs and maybe Showtime by just queen walking every game. But that's also not fun. So I voiced myself before even the first patch came in favor of nerfing the queen walk so Protoss would get more variety. And back then Reddit said, oh, but then if the queen walks get nerfed, it's just going to be more Skytoss. No, they actually had to play Skytoss. They had to open up with 2 Stargate Void Ray in order to even survive the queen walk with any reasonably economic opener. Either way, many of these changes I fucking hate. Zerg got nerfed to an extreme amount, and it affects me very negatively, so I want to voice my frustrations about having to play Protoss the entire time, about Zerg not having as many aggressive options at the top level, and the matchups feeling very stale because they took some opportunities and some options away, right? There's a lot of things that went wrong, and I can go over them right now. I feel like I might as well just scratch the video where I go over what I think went wrong and do it right here, because people apparently think that I'm defending the Balance Council. So I think this, for example, which was a change literally suggested by me in a YouTube video, in this YouTube video, I think it was our Lurkers Imba versus Toss, because the entire community back then thought the reason Protoss players open with Sky Toss is because the Lurker is broken, which was completely false. It was completely false back then already. So that pissed me off, so I made a video, okay? What actually was the case was that queen walks were pretty broken. So the suggestion was that queens can no longer transfuse off creep, and then at the same time you nerf the Void Ray, so they get disincentivized to still continue to use that. I wish we would have done it with a cooldown, so that you can't walk your queens across on a hatchery tech, which you could previously, and then they could transfuse, and you do like a pretty nice cooldown of like, can be 5 seconds, 10 seconds, I don't really care, but so that the queens don't instantly lose their ability to transfuse, because now if I'm all-inning and I do spread creep and they're slightly off creep, all of a sudden I can transfuse. Or if I'm defending against a Terran and I step slightly too far forward against the Banshee Hellion, I get grenaded forward, all of a sudden the queens can't transfuse anymore. It's really annoying, and I think this there maybe would have been a slightly better solution, so you put a cooldown until like you're off creep for like 5 seconds and then you can't transfuse anymore or something like that. But overall, I think this made the game better overall. Also, Lurkers could pretty much borrow instantly, which I agree was stupid, okay? Either way, here we get to the things where I really started having issues with it. The Ravager build time increase might seem very small, and people said that this was for Zerg, to make it more difficult for Zerg to defend, because Zerg was too strong defensively. But we didn't really need to more of the Ravagers reactively that often in order to defend stuff. It just is not that relevant. Like, I'm not sitting here losing games because the Ravager takes 3.5 more seconds to morph. However, every single pool first opener or every single all-in that Zerg has, Zerg in general, this has always been the case, is very difficult to pressure with. You kind of have to commit to an all-in or you macro. It's no real in between, right? And unless you maybe do like early Muta, but basically early tech options or early aggressive options are not really a thing with Zerg, and every single all-in is based around the Ravager, or almost every single all-in, at least at the top level, because the Ravager gives you a couple of things. One is a lot of burst damage. Two, you can morph them on the other side of the map, so you can spend your gas nicely at the front while reinforcing with speedlings. And three is just a very, it's a good ranged unit for the early game. It's a good unit to have in general. And every single, for example, the 5 Roach Opener got a massive nerf just by that, because now all of a sudden the Ravager arrives 3.5 seconds too late. A little bit less, but still. It's like over 3 seconds later than it would have arrived before, and that actually nerfed the builds. And that is something where I think Zerg already sucked before. So I think that is shit. A shit decision from the Balance Council. I think big mistake there, right? This patch just straight up nerfed Zerg, and you can either think, okay, Zerg was broken beforehand, or Zerg was fine beforehand. And depending on whatever you think, then this patch can be fine, or it cannot be. But if you're going into this patch thinking that the game was about balanced, then this is a shit patch, because all of our units just got worse. All of our units got worse. Like the Baneling, which was our main unit, it still is our main unit against Terran bio, and it was also a heavily used unit against Protoss. It was kind of our main unit against Protoss as well. We used to play Ravagerling Bane and Hydroling Bane mostly. They removed the one-shot against probes, but then they also removed the health bonus from centrifugal hooks. So you would think we got a huge compensation. But on top of that, we got the Broodlord nerf, the Broodlord strength, right? It got quicker, but the Broodlord strength, the engagement strength of the unit, as well as the Infestor Fungal strength of that unit, even though we don't need to research that thing anymore. The Fungal range got lowered by 1, plus it now deals 5 less damage. And then on top of that, they made the lurkers lower. So all of our units just got worse. And that patch I was pretty pissed at, honestly. Not only on my stream, but also just at the pro gamers that decided this. But I can't really complain much if I don't partake too much in the Balance Council, but I hated this patch from just a perspective of this makes me worse, right? And I also hated that Banelings overall, the style which was very fun to play, especially against Protoss, was not that good against Protoss anymore. We still played the Baneling styles just as normal against Terran, but this was just a very annoying patch to have. So that this patch overall was the worst one for Zerg. The other ones were not that bad. Let's take a look at this one as well. Here they just nerfed the Burrow Infestor. I think this is overall a buff for the Infestor, because the 9 to 10 range actually felt huge. It felt massive. So for top players, I think this was a nerf. I mean, for lower level players, I'm not sure how much Burrow Infestors are used. I still think now they're underused again. But yeah, this was basically... I was annoyed at this change as well. I'm not gonna lie. And then there was this patch, the most recent patch, where I'm most annoyed by the Mothership and the Tempest buff, because already Protoss players have tried to get to that stage where the super standard PVZ, which was not broken for Zerg before the patch, was you play Stalker Storm into Tempest late game. Every single game Hero at EWC played that exact style, and then they just make it stronger, like straight up. And also it's shit designed to not have this unit abductable, because you need to dive into it with Corruptors, and that's the only way you can kill it. Like, it can run away from Hydras while still shooting them because it has more range. It shoots 4 Hydras at a time. You can't abduct it. What do you want me to do? I need to fly into it with Corruptors if I want to kill it. And that's the only counterplay, which I think is shitty design. And I think in general, buffing Protoss in late game against Zerg is just not what Protoss needed. And I do not understand why this happened. I genuinely do not understand why this happened, and I was pissed about many of these things. An extra thing I was pissed about was this entire Cyclone saga. Why the fuck do you make a Cyclone reactor build? Now all of our pull first openers just straight up died. Proxy hatch, pull first openers, all were shit, because the Reaper would see the Roach. They wouldn't even need to scout. They see the Roach leaving the base, they can cancel their Hellions and make Cyclones. What the fuck is that? Honestly, we don't have a lot of aggressive options. Then they nerfed the Ravager more of time, and then they made the Cyclone reactable. Completely shit. Also, now that they reverted, the Cyclone was fucking broken for a while, which is not the fault of the Balance Council, but obviously because of the people implementing the patch. It is still broken, by the way. The Cyclone is still broken. And that type of stuff is super annoying for me too. I have many issues. And I also have issues with the state of Zerg right now, which is precisely why I made the previous video. Because I want to be able to voice my concerns, without giving ammunition to people on forums that just repeat them. Very often they repeat them in the wrong fashion as well, and then they group them up with things that are completely over the top or straight up false. That stuff is really annoying. And I don't want any other Zergs to feel like they can't do that stuff. Because if you hear me talk about I don't have many aggressive options, and Zerg in general is very limited on options right now. Basically, every single time we play against pros, we have to open either +1 melee or quick Hydras because they open with Blink every time. That is exclusively a high-level problem. Exclusively, because nobody below even 6k can play the Blink circles properly. If you want, you can go to 5k. Okay, if I'm out of my mind because I don't know how good the Protoss players are between 5 and 6k, but anybody below Grandmaster, this is not an issue. So I want to talk about my issues in particular without talking too much about the lower level, and I want to make a video about specifically the last patch, how much it actually affected the lower level. It didn't even affect me that negatively, but I still feel very negative about it, if I'm being entirely honest. So that is why comments like these, which this was not the worst, this was the best out of the comments, but out of the comments where I'm apparently defending the balance council, are pretty annoying because I was pretty critical of the balance council, and I'm critical of literally the changes. Even during the video I said, I even named an example of a change that I hated. I get frustrated by multiple things. I get frustrated by the Broodlord being shit, right? I get frustrated by losing against Protoss players in late game that are worse than me, right? I sound just like you guys, but it's frustrations that are hard for me to voice if they're being used for the wrong stuff. And I would rather have a fruitful discussion rather than whatever shit went down in some of these forum posts. Okay, so either way, without going too much more into this one, let's go into the next. As a Diamond Zerg, I don't feel like Zerg is unplayable, but it's certainly less fun than it used to be, if that makes sense. So this is very interesting. I hope you're watching this video, or I hope you watched the last one as well. If you feel this way, I saw a lot of comments that are similar to this. If you feel this way, since when do you think it is less fun to use? This is my general question to you guys. And why? Because the last patch, I do not see a reason as to why it would be less fun to use in the last patch. Is it over the past 2 years? And then an extra question. Did you guys play before the Balance Council came in the Void Ray Skytos meta? And was it more fun back then? Because most of the mech stuff actually remained the same. The only unit that actually got better during the Balance Council that is annoying is the Cyclone. Everything else that is super annoying to play against, which is tank Thors, remains unchanged. The Skytos got nerfed. What exactly do you think makes Zerg feel less fun now? I know some of our units got nerfed, like the Lurker and the Broodlord, but I don't think these units are even that good at dealing with these two unit compositions, for example, in particular. So this is a general question to you guys that I hope you guys can answer. This also goes out to Twisting Chaos here, for example. I know there's a lot of people that have this. So specifically try to tell me the timing at which you have felt this, or do you feel like this was always the case, which I could understand, for example, or do you feel like this is specifically since this patch, for example, that nerfed the Baneling? Like, I would love to hear from you guys, because I don't think even the Baneling losing 5 HP will eliminate Baneling styles from platinum level games or diamond level games. But it's super interesting for me, and I'm trying to understand you guys as well. That's why I'm making these videos. Remember when they deleted the Broodlord from the game? That's when Zerg players should have stopped playing the game. The moment they did, I know the game was going to become cancer with turtling strategies from Terran Protoss. Apparently they went further and nerfed Zerg late game even further, encouraging more low skill turtling. I don't think Broodlords were good at busting these styles, no? The best option for lower level, especially against Skytos, was always Ultras, I think. And against Mech, I think the best option is Swarmhosts, which are hard to use, but if you get to use them, they're super fun to use against Mech players. You actually get to play an active game and you can kill them. Swarmhosts are very hard to play against as well as they're hard to play. But Broodlords, Broodlords just, didn't they always get A-moved by Thors ever since they changed that extra mode to be super strong against Broodlords, which was not a patch by the Balance Council, by the way. So yeah, I would like to hear as to how the Broodlord change in particular affected the turtling strategies from Terran and Protoss, because I don't think Broodlord timings or something were that good against those, but maybe I'm wrong. So I'm genuinely trying to understand. Yeah, I've redone my entire hotkey cyber and gone back to the bots from Platinum 1. I've come to realize that I cannot keep up or exceed my opponent mechanically. I just get steamrolled, playing a micro game, injecting bases, expanding, defending, constantly producing weaker units that die and require regrouping and managing spellcasters all at once really seems to me to come down to how quickly and effectively you can do it. Pros, for example, can do all of the above insanely quick, and it feels like unless I can do the same, I just cannot keep up with the simplicity of the other races. This part I heavily disagree with. You do not need a spellcaster at all. I can play without spellcasters. I barely make like you don't need spellcasters in Platinum League. You can make Roach Hydra and A-move everybody. You can also play all-ins, you can play Muta, you can play whatever you want. Try to play, in general, for people that feel the same, please try to play less like the pro players, the serials that you're watching, playing with the spellcasters. You don't need fucking spellcasters. They will make the game harder for you. I myself, I'm a pro player, and very often, I don't make Vipers because I will then control my units worse. Like I will have a worse control of my units because I would like to micro better. I can focus better on the more simplistic things that matter more in the end, like making a concave properly. For example, this would be at platinum level, and then A moving is more important than you trying to figure out and abduct a unit or something. This does feed into the I need to play twice as good as my opponent theory, but I'm tired of losing to silly all-in simple strategies after already learning to deal with a metric fuck ton of cheese from the other races. Yeah, this is a general StarCraft issue. I also I have this discussion very often with my girlfriend because she hates cheese as well, and she plays Protoss first of all, and she also hates playing against cheeses. And I have to explain to her that, I mean, I have to calm her down very often because she gets cheesed all the time as well. It is way easier to cheese. You can try to cheese yourself. That's completely fine. But yeah, there's no solving this. No matter what patch you're gonna do, the cheese is always gonna be easier than trying to respond to the cheese. Like it's always easier to forgate Zealot, or Proxy Rex, or Proxy Hatch, or 12 Pool. It's always easier than playing a macro game because you need to learn much less and you're the one that is experienced in whatever you're doing. And you basically get to play your game whereas the opponent reacts to you. This goes for all three races, but I do agree that Zerg does get probably cheesed the most. I would imagine so, at least. I'm not in Platinum League, so I can't comment with 100% certainty, but I could see this happening. So screw it, I'm going back to the bots and maybe unranked and literally just focus on a mechanical ability. Win or lose, in my opinion, if I can't do this, I can't climb anymore. I would less focus just on playing against bots and trying to grind mechanical things rather than trying to learn how to do something, because I think there's a big like trying to get better mechanically is really, really good. and I definitely do appreciate that mentality in general, but it's probably also a lack of knowledge. I think you can also learn a thing or two if you're in Diamond, if you're in Platinum League, and that will accelerate your MMR gain very heavily. You can also just play aggressive yourself. You can also, at Platinum League, or Diamond League, or Masters League, play an aggressive opener to pressure your opponent and then have a macro game behind it. This is actually possible. This is one of the things that on pro level is not possible, but on platinum level it is actually. Side note, I'm still waiting for Banelings to be nerfed out of the game entirely. Watching my maxed out 2k with ping cost Banelings lose to a few tier 1 units, plus 1 tier 1 units, still tilts me beyond belief, but that's another conversation, I suppose. This is not because Banelings were nerfed. Banelings at platinum level are always bad, unless you're running into Clamp Bio. They're always bad. Platinum players, whenever I watch their replays, they don't even move command the Banelings. Banelings are actually hard to play with. You need to move command them. They're very expensive units. That's why whenever you watch Bronze to GM guys, they tell you to play Roach Hydra. I think you should play whatever is fun for you. And that will automatically help you get better as well. So if you like playing Banelings, you can play with Banelings. But remember, Banelings are hard to play with. They're very difficult to play with, and I do not recommend them in any matchup. they're they're just difficult to play with. Even just making Zerglings, it's very larva intensive, and you need better mechanics to play Lingbane than to play Roach Hydra. So buff toss and nerf Zerg is not what I'm saying at all. In fact, it's not what I'm saying at all. Lambo doesn't understand why people don't like playing Zerg. If Zerg had more than one, maybe two viable playstyles, had more than road to victory game goal, long macro game, then you would see more Zerg players. But when your options are severely limited and you're pretty much forced into long macro games to win, then the races become stale and boring. I do not understand where this is coming from, that we have one or two viable playstyles, unless they are watching pro players stream and then they hear them say that. How the fuck do you get the idea that you only have one viable playstyle? I do not know which league you're in, Lord Muffin. I do not know, but you can play. Okay, just as an example, on my Zerg Academy, the last Free MMR Friday video I uploaded was a Lingbane Muta all-in. Did you even know a Lingbane Muta all-in is possible against Terran? I've had Grandmaster players play that and win. A Lingbane Muta all-in. You can play whatever you set your mind to. The more weird it is, oftentimes, the better it is. You can open 2-base Hydra against Protoss. You can play Lurker style without Hive against Protoss, and I'm sure you will see great results. You can play Mass Muta every single game against Protoss if you like. That's completely fine. I've watched my girlfriend play against someone, and that's a Diamond 1, where that guy opens Quick Corruptor every time. You can do the craziest shit. Honestly, you might be surprised that you perform better with that. Also, the best game goal, if you actually want to gain MMR, is not long macro game. The easiest by far is to all-in. There's many good all-ins with Zerg. Many good all-ins. The last patch actually made that better because it removed the reactor Cyclone and it removed the battery overcharge, which battery overcharge was very easy to use for Protoss players. A lot of Protoss players, the lower you get, the worse they become with the energy recharge and with the battery overcharge. So the last patch actually made that better. A lot of all-ins, I can tell you right now, that would instantly rank you up if you play them. So if your road to a victory game goal is a long macro game, even if you don't like early game all-ins, you can play 1-1 road travelers, which is way better, for example, against Terran, which is way better than trying to play a long, it's way easier rather than playing a long macro game. If you enjoy long macro games, you can do that. But if you hate playing long macro games, just don't do it. There are options. I don't understand where this is coming from, that there are no options. I can imagine him hearing it from Grandmaster players that are saying, damn, Zerg, especially against Terran, we basically don't have all-ins. Or only real all-in is 1-1 Roach Ravager. And then we can Ravager all-in in the early game. And if they have a Banshee, they're safe against everything. So 3C Banshee is literally safe against everything at the top level. This doesn't hold true, though, for the lower levels. Like, literally, if you're Platinum level and the other guy is going 3cc Banshee, let's say, into Bio, you can do a Roach Hydra all-in. You can play whatever. You can play drop heavy. You can rush ultras and then do an ultra timing. I actually have done a lot of ultra timings recently, which are basically all-ins where I stop upgrading, and they also see great success. There's a ton of different playstyles from Zerg. Just because every ZVP that you watch at the pro level is the same doesn't mean that should be that should be the case at the lower level. If your opponent opens with Archon Charged Immortal, there are so many different things you can do, from Swarm Host to Muta to Hydra Ling Bane, to late game, to all-ins, from Queen Walks to Nidus Worms. You can do early game all-ins, you can play 17-17, you can play 13-12, you can play 14-14, you can proxy hatch, you can hatch block, you can do whatever you want. It's simply not true that Zerg only has one viable playstyle. I don't know what level you're at, but not even at the top level, it's only one viable playstyle. Not every game looks the same. So I don't understand. Like, he says, I don't understand why people are playing Zerg, but then he says something that I think I can disprove, like, logically. So I would like to speak with all of these people, honestly, one-to-one, so I can understand why they think, or I would even like to know which playstyle he thinks is the one viable playstyle. Either way, came to post this. Title of the thread does not match the message of the video, which I think is true. I went over the... I did go off tangent once when I saw the David Kim post, because that, like, people are just making shit up at that point. But that was pretty annoying. Either way. Okay, the next one from Legacy of the Boys, who said, so all of Zerg's weaknesses exist on ladder, but not really in pro play too much. This is because Zerg only has 1 to 2 viable styles, here it is again, making it predictable but not an issue outside of best of ones. Zerg only has one small window to kill turtle players with hydro timings before they have to be willing to play super long games. Hitting that window isn't too bad for top Zerg players, I think, and outside of that, pro players don't play for fun anyway, so boring late game isn't a problem. Zerg does best when it's reactionary to the enemy, and in pro play, you know your opponent well in advance. So when a Zerg pro says something like Zerg is viable, they're demonstrating zero knowledge on the issue and are ignoring it entirely, It's unviable for pro play. It's not unviable for pro play, it is weak on the ladder, it's 100% unfun, and you wouldn't do it unless you were being paid. First of all, I think almost every Zerg player, almost every pro player in general, is playing for fun. We're making not a lot of cash, and if you're playing StarCraft and you're just in it for the money, then it doesn't make sense unless you're Cyril, pretty much. Cyril or Rainer. There's like a very few select people that are making a good living with StarCraft, and most people do play for enjoyment. I have immense love for this game. And I can tell you right now that I'm not playing boring late games. In fact, I don't even find late games boring. I just think they're shit for Zerg. I'm not playing any late games against Protoss because they're fucking awful. How are you saying the weaknesses exist on ladder but not in pro play? Are you fucking kidding me? No pro player, including Cyril, is trying to play late game. Have you watched any of the last series of Cyril? Late game sucks for pro level play. Just as much as it does below the pro level. How come you think it's just for ladder? How come you think Zerg only has 1 or 2 viable styles? I do not get that. Zerg does best when it's reactionary to the enemy, and in pro play, you know your opponent well in advance. This is true for the pro level, but it's not actually. Man, this just triggers me so much because he's saying I'm demonstrating zero knowledge on the issue. And I'm ignoring it entirely. But people are acting like there's only 1 or 2 styles for Zerg below the pro level, and that is not true. And people are acting like you have to play reactive with Zerg, and that's also not true. It is the one thing that I can understand is that you have to play, if you want to play the best all-ins, there are reactive all-ins, especially the ones that are not straight up in the early game. But it is way better below the pro level to be proactive and to be the aggressor. It is way better and it is viable. And there is so many different playstyles that are viable. It's actually the exact opposite of what he's saying. These are issues that are there in pro level. They're also true below the pro level to some extent, but he's completely confusing the amount of viable playstyles. The amount of viable playstyles lessens the higher the skill goes, not the other way around. I don't understand how this is completely how this is completely skewed. I don't get this at all. I don't understand where this is coming from, that Zerg only has 1 or 2 viable playstyles. We can play pretty much anything below the pro level. Like, if I play against a 6k player, I can play anything. That's because I'm better, obviously, but in Diamond League, I can give you guys legit so many cool different things that you can do, and you will have instantly more success than trying to play reactive. And there's so many different styles. I really hate, I don't know where this came from. I'm assuming this came from hearing it from others, but I really wonder where this originated from. It might be because of the Bane nerf. I really don't know. What I talked about at 38 was Zerg's not having the best guides. I think there's a lot of truth. I'm not going to read anything positive for the thing to keep it short. I don't know about balance, but it's really not fun to play Zerg. I just feel like a punching bag for the other races who get to find all sorts of annoying ways to deal damage to me. Maybe this is the only way to experience a swarm type race, but I feel like we already have such a shitty units. Why do we also need to be on the back foot most of the game? This I talked about a lot in my thing, and this is a feeling that I think was there for Zerg always. What my video is trying to say is that it is not because of the last patch, and it is not that much worse now, but because of this general consensus, people are feeling like it is getting way worse. I get that if you think all of these patches made it so much worse. Once again, I ask you very kindly, try to tell me why you feel that way, or since when. Because for me personally, I feel like Zerg's always the bitch race. It has been since I play the game, and I play the game since Wings of Liberty. Usually the other guys are trying to deal damage while we're trying to drone up in the early game. You don't have to play like that if you don't like to. You can be the aggressor, and that's fine. But this has been the way since forever, And the thing that I don't get is why people are saying this is because of the last patch, which people are saying. So yeah, I'm around Platinum with both Zerg and Protoss, and while I don't think this game is imbalanced at this level as far as overall win rates go, I feel that Mech and Skytoss make Zerg far less enjoyable to play than Protoss. This is completely understandable. Versus Turtlemech pre-patch, I was rushing Hive, then pouring my money into Ultras and Swarm Host if they were really messing things, but I can't seem to pull this off anymore after the Ultra nerf. It's a frustrating matchup because I don't feel like I have any options other than get 90 drones and Hive tech, stop him from getting new bases easily, and then trade out the army over and over, but not too inefficiently. It's not unplayable, but it's frustrating to feel pigeonholed into playing a specific style, and I frequently lose games without quite knowing what I should have done instead, since my spellcaster control is very bad. Versus Kaitos, I can win games with Hydra Lingolin, so at least I'm winning games, but again, it's frustrating to feel pigeonholed into a single viable option. Please watch my Skytos guide. I gave you guys, in my Skytos guide, I give you guys 3 different options. One if you don't want to all-in, one that is great for all-inning, doesn't include Hydras, so there you already have an extra option, and then another macro option. This is microble unit compositions, okay? I've tried a lot of other things, even gotten some of them to work while playing random for them are below my circuit, but I wish I had these options that weren't loose to Skytos. Play the one style that actually works for Skytos or Smurf so that I can pull off strategies like Mutas or Swarmos or anything resembling a late game versus Skytos. Playing Protoss has made me realize how much mech Skytos really sucks the fun out of Zerg, because when I play Protoss, I don't have a single matchup like this. I have options for every situation versus mech turtle players. I can attack them with early blink starters. I never... The funny part is I agree 100% with the sentiment of this, and that is why I feel so misunderstood. I feel like my video is misunderstood because even though I said it multiple times, that these issues really do exist, and there are imbalances in terms of how easy something is and how hard something is to play, and it is completely understandable that you can have more fun playing Protoss very often than Zerg. It sucks being the punching bag. The thing is that this didn't happen, and that's the point of my video, that this didn't happen because of the Balance Council. If you played against Skytos before the Balance Council ever came, even before the triple void ray buff, it was even worse. That was the entire point of my video. I get the feeling of these Zerg players, and I even get the feeling that you leave a game and you feel like you played better than your opponent. This is difficult to judge, and it's a bad mindset, I think, to have in general, because you're not playing the same race, but it is super understandable and it's just human. And I don't blame anyone who gets these thoughts. I don't blame anyone who wants to criticize, if you want the Balance Council for not doing anything about it, if you want even just venting their frustrations. It is so very understandable for me, because I get frustrated constantly. I play this game for a living, and I get frustrated constantly. Like, if I lose against a Protoss that is 800 armor below me because I try to play a late game, I do this like once a month. I also get very sad. So I fully understand this. Where I also feel like, okay, what he did is not as hard as what I have to do to beat him. This happens, but the thing that my video was trying to aim at telling you guys is that this was the case already before the Balance Council came in. This is not because the Banelings lost 5 HP. This is not because the Lurkers burrow slower. It is not because of the most recent Ultralisk nerf, which Ultras were worse before the Balance Council came, by the way. Ultras overall were buffed by the Balance Council. It is not because Broodlords are weaker. It's simply not the case. Zerg always felt like that, and I think it is over-exaggerated on how much, especially the last patch, had an effect on this. I also think that if you are honest and you watch your replays, and we could somehow rewind with the old Ultras that are smaller, you would still lose the games that you're losing. I think the amount of games that you're now losing that you wouldn't beforehand, just because of the Ultra nerf, are a minority. That's why also I think the StarCraft community in general over-dramatizes. That doesn't sound like a real English word, but you know what I'm talking about. Every single time, every single patch. Because the patches will make a race weaker or stronger. Everybody always thinks their race is getting the short end of the stick. I can tell you that over this time frame, it was Zerg, in fact. But the amount of games that you end up actually losing because of balance, you think is way higher than it actually is. That's either way. Like, I completely understand the sentiment. And I understand these frustrations. And I don't want these people to feel not heard, or that is not true what they're feeling, or that I'm telling them they're wrong or something. All I'm saying is it's not because of the patch. Zerg is very playable. It has gotten a bit less enjoyable though, in particular because you have to walk a much thinner line that motivates Protosses and Tyrants to throw the stupidest crap at you that makes you feel stupid, for you to lose it. And then he asked, how is the line thinner? Mainly talking ZVP. 3-base attacks have gotten harder to hold for Zerg, while 3-base Zerg attacks have become easier to hold for Protoss. I don't understand this. There's no overcharge anymore. How are the 3-base, like literally every Protoss I talk to is, we're now, as programmers, we're 3-base all-inning almost every game. We make a fake 4-touch so they can't tell, but we're 3-base all-inning every single time. That's the only thing that actually got better for Zerg. It's the only thing. Because our early game got better, which means against Protoss, our 3-base attacks hit harder, and they removed the shield battery overcharge. 3-base attacks actually have gotten harder to hold for Protoss. I think this is wrong, what he's saying. 3-base attacks have gotten harder to hold for Zerg. I don't understand why. Like, people are making points like this, and I would love to see an explanation behind it. Like, for example, you're writing Zerg 3-base attacks now have gotten shittier, and Protoss attacks have gotten harder to hold for Zerg because... I'm trying to think of a reason right now, but I'm completely blank. What was in the patch even? Because the Immortal got nerfed. That's why 3-base, no. Because the Hydras, let's say the Hydras are slower. Obviously, that's not what he means, right? I'm not trying to make fun, but I'm just trying to... Please put an explanation behind it, because I'm trying to understand. Truly, I am. I am not at that level. I am in touch with many Zergs that are at that level, through the Zerg Academy and through my stream. With many of them. And yeah, it's... I try my best at understanding the issues. I think this, by the way, is a cause for many Zergs feeling that way, that they need to walk a thinner line because the early game doesn't feel as smooth anymore with the queen change. And I personally am in favor of reverting this queen change to 150 and reverting the spore color change, which is an overall nerf for Zerg against Protoss and a buff against Terran. Because in the early game, because the spore is just simply insane against air units. So we just need less queens now against Protoss, which allows us to have more drones, which is just great. Like ZVP early game has never been so easy, but this is for top level. But I can understand that this is frustrating for lower level players, and I think personally I would rather have Protoss have more... Like I liked it more when Protosses were actually diving in with the Oracles. Right now Protosses are super passive with the Oracles because they can't, because the spore is simply too strong. So I kind of wish we could revert this, personally. But yeah, I think generally I feel a little bit misunderstood by a bunch of these comments. And I understand where this confusion is coming from, because it sounds like I'm just shitting on Redditors. If you especially click on the video with that says Lambo calling out Reddit Zerg whiners, which is not the title of my video, and I was provocative with the thumbnail because I tried to get people to click, but it kind of backfired a little bit, which is also okay. It's all... I expected some hate from Zerg players, and that is not too surprising. But yeah, we looked through the patches already. I will go over it at the end of the video as well on what I think maybe are some good changes or some things that I would change. But I also opened the race distribution because people have claimed in the YouTube comments. There's so many YouTube comments, I can't go over all of them one by one. There's also many positive comments, so shout out to everybody who is actually positive. Shout out to anybody who comments in general, because I like seeing it, and I read through every single comment. Like, unironically, I read through every single comment. That's what I do after I'm done with my work, basically in my free time. Before I go to bed, as I read all my comments, which I should maybe not do, because last night I couldn't actually sleep that well because some comments triggered me. There was, for example, one person that said that every Protoss basically just ranked up, and you shouldn't look at the win rates of Zerg, but rather if there's just simply then less Zergs at the higher levels, and then all the Protosses ranked up. So I checked that as well, and I did not see anything like that. I also didn't see Zergs retiring. Zergs retiring and stopping to play because the game's unfun, by the way, is a huge problem at the Grandmaster level, at the Pro level. Like, seeing less Zergs is also a huge issue. I didn't really talk about it, but that would have been in the next video. That would have been actual problems with Zerg now. That I would have loved to talk about without the backlash from the first video, but now here I'm talking about it anyways. So the Zerg count pretty much is consistent at 26% from 2021 Season 1, I would say. And we're having a look here at Masters League, where we're at 27.7% in terms of Zergs. If all the Protoss ranked up, you would have seen more Protoss players in Masters League. Am I correct in that assessment? For the couple of people that told me that every single Protoss just ranked up, and that's why the win rates are now better against Protoss. Because there's generally, there were a couple of people that told me this. So there's 32.3% in Masters, 29.7 in Diamond, 29.0 for Protoss, and for Zerg it's 29.8, 30.8, 27.78. So we're going to look at this season now, and we'll see that nothing statistically relevant really changed. It's actually less Protoss players in Masters League. As a Zerg, that this is also not as obvious. The energy recharge actually doesn't do that much against Terran, but a big difficulty for Protoss players at the lower level is holding Terran pushes, which the shield battery overcharge helped you tremendously. So in my experience, from talking with Protoss players, and I know as a Zerg player you're not, for example, a lot of Protoss started losing more to tank pushes, for example, from Terran. So it doesn't even make that much sense that they gained so much all of a sudden. Like the patch didn't buff them drastically below the pro level in particular. And yeah, the numbers remain roughly the same. I think maybe there's more Zergs in Diamond and Masters, but let me compare again. 27.6, 31.4, 21.6, 27.7. I think a couple more Zergs made it into Masters. It's cool to see that the Zerg is very well represented. The real issue is not this, by the way, it's this. Look, it's about to look real sad. What the Grandmaster is that there's 41% Protoss players in Grandmaster. That is an issue, okay? So this is the type of issue that I would have liked to talk in the second part of my video about. I don't even get to do it now. But yeah, I didn't want to be misunderstood. Now, last things. Oh god damn it! It scrolled up. I had 2 or 3 comments prepared. I don't want to scroll through all of them again. It's literally, it's almost 200 comments. And I think I went over most of the stuff already. I think the general sentiment is that the people that didn't like the video are feeling like no, Zerg does suck to play. And that is fine. The people that think it's just because of the last patch, these are the people that I am having an issue with, and also the people that are over dramatic and exaggerating, and especially the ones that are just spreading fucking fake news, that are saying, oh man, the Protoss players all got promoted from Diamond to Grandmaster because of the last patch. That's complete bullshit. That's complete bullshit. Okay? So this is what the video really was aimed at. I'm sorry if this wasn't obvious. And once again, if you're a Zerg player and you're frustrated, and you feel like it's because of the last patch, try to explain to me at which point exactly you feel like it became more frustrating. If you feel like Zerg only has one viable playstyle, I would love to know which playstyle that is, so maybe I can tell you a second one, or a third one, or a fourth one. Because from my experience, there's actually a ton of fun to be had with Zerg. This was actually my main goal with the Zerg Academy, is to give you guys many different options. And I don't want this to sound like a fucking commercial for the Zerg Academy. I truly don't. I make a lot of money off the Zerg Academy, and I can also be very upfront about it. Look. I can show you right now. I'm making 1.35k, and that is money that I'm actually getting. This is before taxes, but this is money that I'm getting. So this is, you can see the exact amount that I'm getting from Patreon. But I have guides about multiple different styles. I have guides on how to hold stuff, but I also have aggressive guides and different playstyle guides. I even give you guys different game plans that you can have, and even for free. If you think there's only one viable strategy, come to my stream, please, and I can tell you a couple of different playstyles, and maybe you'll enjoy the game more. Because I hate to see the Zergs feeling like they're shit and they are out of options. I want to counteract that myself, and that's also what I wanted to counteract in that video, trying to tell you guys that logically, it is not worse than, the situation is not worse than even before the Balance Council came, especially with Skytos or Mech, which are the main concerns at lower leagues. It is harder to stay alive, for example, against Terran, which is true. You can get around that with certain things, but and there's Zerg in general just got weaker, and I'm mad at some of these patches myself. Hell, I think the Balance Council itself, I'm mad at that, the entire thing in general, but I don't want to be misunderstood there. I am trying to help, and I hope anybody who made it this far can come by to my stream and have a chat with me about it, because I would like to understand more and have fruitful discussions rather than just complaining about it. And yeah, thank you guys so much for anybody who has made it this far. I really do appreciate it. And without further ado, thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one. Bye bye.